Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Casimir 107.1 FM and across the world at ShriNews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. This afternoon, aircraft safety investigators and forensic experts begin clearing debris from the crash site in Tema as they launch a full investigation into the cause of the Sky Arrow microlight helicopter accident that claimed 2 lives yesterday. We have all the latest for you. Also on the program, Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana CLOGSA calls of a strike following a desperate appeal from government to settle the matter within 2 weeks. And much later on the program, government to roll out distribution of standardized and accurate electricity meters starting next month as part of efforts to improve revenue collection in the power sector. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, forensic investigators from the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation and Prevention Bureau have evacuated debris from the site where a Sky Arrow microlight helicopter crashed, killing the 2 occupants on board. 3FM's George Quaining, who witnessed the exercise, reports that personal items of the victims, including a mobile phone, key, handkerchief, and 5 cedi were retrieved. The Ghana Civil Aviation Authority says the private aircraft was flying from Ho to Accra and was expected to arrive at about 15:20 GMT. The authority further reveals that the last radio contact with the aircraft was recorded at 14:18 GMT. Personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service responded to the scene after the aircraft went down near a daycare facility at Tema Community 1. Now, apart from the death of those on board the flight, no other casualties were recorded. We understand that officials from the Ghana National Armed Forces, Police and NADMO have been to the scene this morning supporting the investigators currently looking into the matter, and my colleague George Quaining is there. He will be bringing us updates very shortly. But ahead of that, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana CLOGSA has called off a strike following an appeal from the government to allow 2 weeks for the resolution of their concerns. CLOGSA began an indefinite nationwide strike on March 9, 2026 to back their demand for the implementation of agreed conditions of service. The industrial action affected services across ministries, local assemblies and agencies. At a news conference, Executive Secretary of the Association, Isaac Bampoado, announced that members are to resume work on the 24th of March 2026. However, the leadership of CLOGSA maintains that it will not appear before the National Labour Commission, citing ongoing legal action against the Commission.
The National Executive Committee, EXECO, of Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana CLOGSA on 17th March 2026 reviewed the appeal by government to call off the nationwide strike action and allow government 14 days to come to an amicable resolution of the issues with the salary structure and conditions of service of members of CLOGSA. EXECO therefore has suspended the nationwide strike. All members of CLOGSA are to report to work by Tuesday, 24th March 2026.
And you heard that the Executive Secretary of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSA, Isaac Bampoado, speaking earlier at a press conference which announced the calling off of the industrial action. Meanwhile, a former president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, Angel Kabonu, says that Labour is awaiting the rollout of the new salary structure, which he believes will benefit all workers. He made this statement ahead of today's meeting between Labour and the President, where discussions are expected to centre on the challenges confronting the union.
You know, we are about to go for May Day, so the issues are going to come up. Issues of labor challenges, issues of remuneration, income levels. Recently, the TUC and organized labor raised issues on the electricity tariff, which has been reduced. As to whether it is enough or it's not enough, when they meet President, I'm sure that is going to come up for discussions. But I'm very confident that the leadership of Labour will be able to come to some understanding. One of the first promises the President made when he came to power is that they are going to change the salary structure and form a unified incomes system. We are waiting for the implementation of that, because that one will take away Article 71. We will not have some special article people call 71. Some of us are looking forward to a situation where we have from the President to the lowest person on the same salary structure, so that whenever some people get a raise, some other people below there will also get a raise. Some of that is the dream that we have.
And you have Angel Carbonu. He's a former executive of NAGRAT. The Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, has announced the nationwide distribution of standardized and accurate electricity meters starting next month as part of efforts to improve revenue collection in the power sector. He says the initiative will also include the large-scale deployment of new transformers aimed at strengthening power supply and stabilizing electricity distribution across the country. He says that ECG's procurement has been reprioritized this year, with the procurement of transformers and meters being the major items under its 1.8 billion cedi budget allocation. John Jinapor assured MPs on Monday in Parliament that all meters procured have undergone rigorous testing and meet the required standards, adding that the installation will help guarantee reliable revenue for future investment in the power industry.
This year, we've reprioritized ECG's procurement. Because whilst in 2024, about 9 billion was spent in procurement, largely on cables. This year, ECG's budget is 1.8 billion as compared to about 9.3 billion. And of that 1.8 billion, we've prioritized two items, transformers and meters. And so let me assure my good friend, like I said, next month we'll start mass-scale rolling out of transformers. Within that same month, we should see a lot more massive injection of new, standardized, accurate meters following up. Because that is how we can also ensure that there's guaranteed revenue for investment.
Mr. Speaker, just a follow-up. I just want to find out from the Minister if the meters that are coming in are the meters that will not be of the Usain Bolt quality, that will be consuming our electricity within the shortest possible time.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with best practice and standards, all meters procured are tested. And there's a facility at the Standards Authority dedicated for meter testing. And so I can assure you that these meters are of high quality, they meet the standard, and they will do the job that they ought to be doing. So I can assure my honorable colleague that these meters are meters that meet the standards of the PURC, they meet the standards of the ministry, and they meet the standards of the Energy Commission through the Ghana Standards Authority. Thank you.
And you have the Minister for Energy, John Jinapor. And we stay in Parliament. Okay, we'll continue with issues from Parliament, but let's return to our earlier story about Clocksack deciding to call off a strike and the fact that there is a meeting expected to happen today. I do have on the line with us our Labour Affairs correspondent, Daniel Opoku. Daniel, we know there's supposed to be a meeting, I think, between Labour and the presidency. What can you tell us about it?
Right. The meeting between government and organized labor is supposed to take place this evening. And that's a meeting requested by the president this evening. For basically, they're going to look at the second tier pension scheme and also other issues on the single spine salary structure. If you recall, For the past few years now, Labour has been calling for a review of the single spine salary structure. They believe that their members have been made worse off, especially those who draw from government, from the consolidated fund, and those who are paid by a controller. They have been shortchanged, so there's a need to have a second look of the single spine salary structure. But it is informative just announced that CLOSAC has suspended their nationwide strike based on the letter that they have received from government. Is the reason they have decided to call off their strike today.
What else should we expect, since, if I heard you correctly, the meeting didn't come off today?
Right. So in the case of CLOSAC, once they have called off the strike, they have asked their members to resume work next week, Tuesday. Next week, Tuesday, that's when the members will resume work. And other issues, government has requested for 2 weeks to get their concerns addressed. But in the case of organized labor meeting president this evening, the president may have to convince organized labor in terms of the issues that they will tabling before him. The single spine salary structure, where they believe that government should have a second look, and also the second tier pension scheme so the benefits of workers can improve.
Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku. He's our Labour Affairs correspondent. The minority in Parliament has strongly condemned the attack on the National Health Insurance Scheme office in Ejuso by some aggrieved supporters of the National Democratic Congress. The group, believed to be party foot soldiers, on Monday locked up the district office in protest over what they describe as the exclusion from government appointments and positions. Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee and Member of Parliament for Efidiase, Dr. Ayu Afriye, also described the incident as despicable and unacceptable. He's calling for an immediate end to what he terms a growing pattern of politically motivated disruptions targeting public institutions. William Evans Income has more in the following report.
So, in a typical act of acrimony, supporters of the ruling party invaded the Ejuso NHIS office, disrupted operations and locked it up. There was no ambiguities behind the action. Appoint one of our own to manage the facility, and that was non-negotiable.
NDC tax force ena mohu ya ha no kwai ena enya body so esan say na yo manager e wo ha health insurance manager ya promote no e de no call ba bi fufuro yenim say NDC Ejuso ha ye kunkunde ena ye ba power enti definitely mpanyimfo na omudi anu ma ye kunkunde no ye di bebre e be hihye politics no won so ahwe nkwala na omofo ma omoye party mo adwuma no no mudi omono so ahihye o na obi akoma to biam na mom ye nka bi hyegu ye manager ko ye be maye nipa a oda ye nim a ofiri Ejuso ha no ye kofa obi efiri babi e de no abrɛ ye wo ha sebio ye operations bebre bisa Ejuso ha ye ni krachini ya obitima hwe health insurance ye wo bebre wa mpanyifo na omudi ye de maye kunkudi ma party no ba power no bebre wa obitima di sadwuma no na adenti na omunu bu wo ye ma omu appointment bia na ye kofo obi afiri babi no krom ofiri babi ofiri ba no health insurance ye mfa no ko enti ne ye de ye kasa etiawa ye ni panyi mu bia eti kasa bia de ye pen say ya ye kunkudi ma party no ba power no yem fa yem panyifo no bi hyem na sabi o yam kwala no so no omuntwa ye di omani no omuhwe e.
The current manager, Alex Abdomakon, was the PRO of the Efidiase NHIS before his elevation. Now he has been declared persona non grata. The minority has condemned the action by the supporters of the NDC, and they have called them out.
Na what you mean nie bosomtwe omosan ko bobo staff no pamo wo mo assign lock office adan manager no yakofa no ba ye no omo NDC ni no omo se ono yamfa no emfri omo NDC mu wo bosomtwe ho eno ntie no so no omasan sake aloke ebiom enne yi a meka sei Ejuso office yi eno die ye ba ha no mo di ahoma ato ho na police fo gina ha sei no adan NDC tax force e wa Ejuso omo say Alex Nimakon o ye manager na ye post na ba ha so mbe ye manager no na omo pese ye fa ejusu ni ene ebe ye manager na kire se assemba ko no eno ana era ni true sa na ejapade na wa hase na MPP ne siye enti se na MPP for sorry ba aka se ye ne ye see office we enti ye beje ye officer se bi na ye ko ye ni ma na se ye ba ye chi.
William Evans Income brought us that report from the Ashanti region. We still stay in Parliament because the member for Nantom, Dr. Abdul Khalid Mohammed Sharif, is calling for urgent and holistic reforms to Ghana's emergency healthcare system, observing that there are deep-rooted systemic failures that need immediate solutions. The medical doctor has stressed that the crisis, which is often referred to as no-bed syndrome, extends far beyond unavailability of beds, but reflects significant deficit in human resources, infrastructure gaps, and logistical constraints. He called for improvement to the ambulance system, but also pointed out that access challenges, especially heavy traffic in cities like Accra, continue to delay life-saving interventions. The Health Committee member cited the death of a 29-year-old engineer who was reportedly turned away from 3 major hospitals due to the lack of beds.
The very foundation of every medical system is its response to emergencies. And once you are able to respond adequately to emergencies, it's expected that you can reduce about 50% of your mortality. We would need to look at the deficit in terms of human resource. If you look critically at the distribution of our human resource in terms of doctors, in terms of nurses, you would realize that the bigger cities have a chunk of these staff. And then you go down to communities like my own in Nanton, where you have very few. Also, we will have to look at our infrastructure. In terms of infrastructure, we cannot be building hospitals without very equipped medical emergency units. And sometimes when you hear no-bed syndrome, I would like to say that, look, no-bed syndrome does not necessarily mean there's no bed. No-bed syndrome goes beyond just the physical bed. It looks at equipment, it looks at staff, it looks at medication, etc. So holistically, as a country, we have a deficit. We all know. But what can we do? I am a medical doctor that was trained in the UDS. I went through what they call the 3rd trimester field practical program. That brought me closer to lesser endowed communities, and because I had that experience, I've never worked in a big hospital until then. Until now, I've always worked in the rural area, and I'll tell my colleagues, look, getting into a rural area, accepting postings gives you a lot of experience. But of course, when doctors, nurses do not, there are various reasons why they wouldn't want to accept postings. One of them is, even the facilities to work with sometimes. So it's a process where ambulance service, right at the point of an emergency, sometimes you need just about 60 minutes to save a life. But look at our fleet of ambulances, especially in our rural areas. Even in Accra here, if you have an ambulance to maneuver your way through this traffic to even get to the nearest health. So emergency care is a holistic approach. And we are saying that, look, as a country, as I'm speaking to you now, I can become an emergency in the next second. If I get to Rich Hospital, would I be able to give in the necessary care that I need? If I'm taken to Kolebu, will I be given the necessary care I need? So this particular statement I made goes beyond the normal politics that we do.
Well, the Member of Parliament for Nanton also reviewed that investigative report from Kolebu and the Health Ministry concerning the death of the 29-year-old Charles Emisa Ready.
And a similar statement was made on the floor, and Mr. Speaker referred it to the Health Committee to be able to look at that report that will emanate from the ministry so that together we can have very good recommendations. Today the report I hear has been released. I'm sure the minister will do what is the needful to refer to the committee. So that the Committee on Health can also look at it. And the Committee of Health is made up of both the majority and the minority. And then dispassionately we should be able to come up with certain policies that would ensure that no Ghanaian loses his or her life just to an emergency simply because we say there's no bed.
And you had the Member of Parliament for Nanton, Dr. Abdul Khalid Mohammed Sharif. Let's go to our earlier story about that accident yesterday, the helicopter accident that claimed 2 lives. George Koenig is my colleague. He's been monitoring events there for us. George, we heard earlier that the Ghana Armed Forces, Police and NADMO have been to the scene this morning to support the team that was there earlier. What can you tell us about this?
So forensic experts of the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigative and Prevention Bureau, AIB Ghana, they were here, and they are the investigators of this very crash. And they came to pick the debris of the microlight aircraft. And clearly, as such, it just marks, the commencement of the investigation. So this very debris is going to be secured at a hangar in Birmingham. So the bureau has a special hangar where they're going to secure this. So they start with the investigations once we are waiting for the report. So I asked whether timelines can be given to the release of the report, when the report will be released. And the Commissioner, John Wumboti, said that it is too early to ask for those timelines. But what they know is that they're going to be thorough with the investigation. And every accident has a peculiar way of handling them. So what accident that happened in August last year is not the same treatment that they're going to use for this one. But they're going to use standard procedure and coming out with a concrete report. And we also asked whether they have identified the families and then the bodies that have been burnt. And they said they will follow protocols. They can't get those names in a day. So they'll follow the protocols and get those names in due course. And also there was no black box in this very aircraft, maybe because it's a light aircraft. In most big aircraft comes black box, which also helps with investigation. But this one, it has no black box issues.
And I know that aside from the individuals who were on board who unfortunately died, we understand there were no other injuries. But people are still concerned about the site of the accident, which is the daycare close to the accident. Is there anything happening there especially?
Yeah, so this daycare has a student population, people population of more than 100. And right close to 2 sheds, which houses, some of them. So every shed has 30 kids. So 2 of them, 70, 16 altogether. It was just close to where the accident happened. And so if anything untoward had happened, it means that all these kids would have died. And some of them were even sleeping after the time it happened at 2:50 p.m. And so it's actually God's intervention. That was actually cancelled the untoward thing. Administration yesterday was singing songs of praises. How could she have accounted for the death of all these students? Some of the teachers are traumatized. As it stands now, students have been asked to go home. Headmasters asked them to go home. And that's in a way going to help them in terms psychologically, because most of them are traumatized. One child, for instance, Muniu didn't eat yesterday. I spoke to him, like, he didn't eat this one. He was being served with oats. He couldn't eat. Even the mother is fully concerned. So the least she can do for us is just comfort him, sleep like always in communication with him. She doesn't have the money for therapy and all this, but that's a little way of making sure that his son recovers from that. And then he just sits idle, and you can see it's really haunting him. So while parents are, give immediate support like this, the school in its also way would also help. That's what the headmistress said. So as a parent, parents don't know when their children will be asked to come back to school. Which is.
George, just for some clarity, I understand that it's a daycare. So if you can tell us the ages of the children.
Yeah, daycare.
Yes.
So from 4 to 6.
Okay, and these children have been asked, obviously, their parents have been asked to come for them. Do we know?
Yeah, because yesterday, when they left yesterday, they were asked them to come from today onwards.
And you did mention...
the exact date when they will be doing, we can't tell.
You can't tell. And do we know whether there's any assistance for the teachers psychologically, since they are saying they are traumatized?
Yes. So yesterday, the headmistress said they will offer some psychological support for them. How that will come to, she didn't confirm, because one teacher, for instance, couldn't go home. So after 10 p.m. when I was still there, I posed that question. She said, if she would have gone home, but if not because of this, she would have been here. She's here because of this very teacher who doesn't even want to go home. She bought food in the afternoon. She couldn't eat till that time. So if she, the headmistress, is still with her at this time, it means, yes, the larger picture is they would also offer that help to the other teachers that were all involved in this very situation.
Indeed. My last question to you, the officials of the AI, is it B? Yes, and yes, and also the military and police officials, plus the others. Do we know how long they are going to be there until they're done with their work completely?
So the place was cordoned off since yesterday, and now all those rappers have been taken up, and so we actually gave room to, what's the name, the residents to pass up and see the aftermath of the crash, because the nearest they could come was, watch through the walls and all that, which didn't give them exact, evidence or whatever they wanted to see. But now they can only come to the scene because all the debris have been collected. So now they have access now. But all these personnel, security people that are manning the place, they're all gone. So it's more like a free range now. Anybody can try and come and go through them because the gate has been opened now. It will take the school authorities to close the school gates. But the security personnel, they are done what they're supposed to do. So that's it.
That's it. Thank you very much, George Quaining. He is my colleague currently covering the aftermath of the helicopter crash yesterday in Tema and what's being done. We return to Parliament because minority members on the Budget Committee have expressed concern over what they describe as a lack of transparency between the Ghana Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana regarding the Gold for Reserves program. The caucus says that the reported loss of $214 million under the program is unacceptable and must be explained by government. Speaking to journalists after a meeting with officials from the International Monetary Fund, the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee, Alexander Ajari, said authorities must account for the losses and provide clarity on how the program is being managed.
There should be transparency because we asked the IMF, and then since they are diplomats, they could not come out clearly, but it's out there that, over $240 million, was an issue between Gold Board and then the Bank of Ghana. So the government should sit up because people of Ghana are not ready to make, losses over a program that's supposed to support our currency. Then in the end, we are spending so much and then making losses as well. So there is a lack of transparency in the dealings of Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana, which we think the government should come out clearly because it looks like it's a kind of a sensitive area. They don't want people to go at all, but people of Ghana demand to know. We can't just lose over 240 million, yet we will not get, good answers to that. Government should be transparent. It is the people of Ghana, it is our money.
And you had the Vice Chair of Parliament Budget Committee, Alexander Ajari. The Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, has called on staff of the Government Communication Ministry to embrace innovation, collaboration and adaptability in order to strengthen public information delivery. She was speaking when she paid a working visit to the office of the Government Spokesperson and Communication, Felix Kwachofosu, at the Presidency.
Hear you, especially graphic and so on, about social media. And I think it raises information for all of us. But it's about collaborating, and it's about trying to put yourself above the curve. How do I do that? Today, people are reading on their tablets or they are reading on their screens. How else can you arrange yourself to be part of this, for example? Okay, maybe not the same way. Can we also show an alternative so the users of the information have choices? How about people who want to go to information that is not distorted? We all know that information is never innocent. Insofar as it is based on selection of material, definitely it implies that some of the material has been left out. So what has been left out, and how do you come in?
And you had the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. That's it for the Midday News here on Sri FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Log on to srinews.com for more news. Have a good afternoon. Coming up shortly is Bismarck Awusa with Business Daily.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. Coming up this afternoon, Chamber for Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, cautions government against hasty fuel tax cuts amid Middle East tensions. Also ahead, financial economist believes policy rates must align with Treasury bill rates to curb market disparities.
The real financial market is sensing or they see a threat, a risk, a credit risk. That is why they would want to invest with the government at close to 5%, but lend to businesses at 22%.
Plus, Bank of Ghana's Monetary Policy Committee set to reveal interest rate decision tomorrow. I am Bismarck Ausa. Will bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Please stay. Thanks for accompanying on to the details. The Managing Director and Chief Knowledge Officer of the World Bank Group, Pascal Donoho, has underscored the need for governments to partner with the private sector to ensure energy sustainability. His comments come amid rising tensions in the Middle East, which have heightened global energy uncertainty. Speaking during an IFC-led field visit to the LMI rooftop solar installation, the largest in Africa and the third largest in the world, he stressed the importance of strategic partnerships in the renewable energy space. He noted that such collaborations are critical to strengthening energy security and reducing exposure to external shocks.
Recognize the potential for a virtuous circle here. And that virtuous circle is with the government and the private sector working together to further build the renewable energy capacity of the economy of Ghana. By doing that, that improves your energy security, and all of the work that I have seen here today is to the long-term benefit of the economy of Ghana as well. This will create jobs, create additional tax revenue, and we want to partner with the private sector here in Ghana and with the government of Ghana to ensure that the entrepreneurial spirit and the technical expertise that we have seen here today is supported to deliver a benefit to the people of Ghana. And I am enormously impressed by what I have seen here and its potential.
You heard Managing Director and Chief Knowledge Officer of the World Bank Group, Pascal Donoho. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of LMI Holdings, Kojo Eduhene, has called for a review of the country's energy regulatory framework to allow for greater private sector participation. He argues that easing regulatory constraints will encourage more investment in renewable energy and help accelerate the country's transition to a more sustainable energy mix.
We're not getting oil. We don't need oil to generate electricity. So if anything at all, it goes to prove that we need to have a lot more of the renewables, or solar especially. Okay. So the Middle East conflict is it's a testament to the sense in having this. The regulatory environment, we need it to be more accommodating, okay, to allow the private sector to play a bigger role. If you look at the energy space, at the moment, okay, you've got the public sector in a commanding position. I think the private sector must be allowed to come in and must be allowed to grow.
And that was Chief Executive Officer of LMI Holdings, Kojo Eduhene. To one of our headline stories now, and the Chamber for Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, has advised the government to exercise extreme caution regarding calls to slash levies and taxes within the petroleum price build-up, despite the recent surge in global oil prices. Speaking on the back of escalating conflicts in the Middle East, which have sent international crude benchmarks climbing, Executive Secretary Duncan Amwa warned that a hasty reduction in taxes could leave the state financially vulnerable if the geopolitical situation worsens.
A consumer is a rational person who would not want to spend so much for something you could spend very little for or relatively little for. And so if it is even a 10 peswa or 20 peswa per liter reduction, the consumer would always welcome it. If you take off the taxes now, at what expense exactly? And then at what mitigation exactly? If you are doing around 16 and you even decide that for the window, I could take out the entire 1 Ghana cedi D levy that was slapped on it, you come back to 15. It's still better than 16. And so for most consumers, I think that, but that would also be the prerogative of government to decide if it can afford, lowering taxes for a week or two. Again, it will bring you back to the earlier question I raised. How far worse would this get? If it is going to get worse in the coming days, then taking off the tax at this point, you are simply slapping a stone to an elephant. It won't have that much of an effect.
Duncan Amwa is Executive Secretary of COPEC Ghana. Now, financial economist Dr. Eric Boakye-Yadom has called on the Bank of Ghana to harmonize its monetary policy rate with prevailing treasury bill rates to ensure economic consistency and market stability. Speaking to 3 Business, Dr. Boakye-Yadom expressed concern over the wide disparity between the central bank's primary signaling rate and the yields on short-term government securities. He argued that for monetary policy to be truly effective, the policy rate should serve as a practical mirror to the rates at which government borrows from the domestic market.
In a well-functioning economy, we expect the monetary policy to be equal to the treasury bill, if not equal, very close. An empirical study will show that in cases where they are not the same, they travel almost along a similar line, and the differences should not be too wide. And that reflects the monetary policy transmission, that the type of monetary policy which has been implemented by the government is actually having effect on the real market conditions. But if we come to the case of Ghana, we have monetary policy sitting at 15.5%, and we have a treasury bill rate sitting around 5%. The real challenge that this poses is the fact that the policies that have been implemented by the Bank of Ghana is not being felt. And another challenge that this poses is that the real financial market is sensing, or they see a threat, a risk, a credit risk. That is why they would want to invest with the government at close to 5%, but lend to businesses at 22%.
You heard financial economist Dr. Eric Boakye-Yadom. Meanwhile, the Monetary Policy Committee of the